It was raining hard that night when the billionaire's car suddenly stopped. Through the glass, he saw a man crawling across the road, holding 2 crying newborns in his arms. Cars rushed past. No one stopped, but he did. And that one decision changed everything. Welcome to Folktale Princess channel. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section to get a shout out from us in our next video. The rain that night refused to stop. It poured like the sky itself was crying. Inside a black Tesla, billionaire Elliot Graves sat quietly in the back seat, staring at the blurred city lights through the window. Just hours ago, he had signed a paper that ended hundreds of jobs. He told himself it was business, but deep down, something inside him hurt. The sound of the rain seemed louder than usual, like guilt had found a voice. Suddenly, the driver hit the brakes hard. The car jerked to a stop. Elliot leaned forward. "What happened?" "Sir," the driver whispered, pointing ahead. Through the fog glass, Elliot saw him. A man crawling across the wet road, drenched from head to toe, holding 2 tiny babies wrapped in soaked cloth. Cars rushed past, splashing dirty water. People watched, but no one stopped. Without thinking, Elliot opened the car door and stepped into the storm. Cold rain hit his face as he ran toward the man. The stranger tried to move faster, terrified, as if expecting to be chased away. But Elliot knelt down beside him, opening his umbrella over the man and the babies. Hey, it's okay," Elliot said softly. "You'll catch your death out here. Let me help you." The man lifted his head slowly. His face was pale, his lips trembling. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She died giving birth. I have nowhere to go." Elliot froze. He looked at the newborns, barely breathing, their tiny hands clinging to the air. Something inside him broke open. For the first time in years, Elliot didn't feel like a billionaire. He just felt like a man standing in the rain, watching someone else drown in a pain he couldn't ignore. The rain slowed by morning, but the sound of it still echoed in Elliot's mind. He hadn't slept a minute. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that man crawling in the street and those tiny, crying babies in the cold. He couldn't leave them behind. He had sent his driver back to find them, and now, as dawn broke, they sat together inside a small hospital room. The man lay weakly on the bed, wrapped in a blanket. One nurse fed the babies warm milk from bottles, their soft cries fading into gentle sighs. Elliot stood by the window, watching the gray sky turn pale. He finally turned and said quietly, "What's your name?" The man's voice was faint. "Caleb Rowe." He hesitated, then added, "I used to work construction before the accident." Elliot stepped closer.
"Accident?"
Caleb nodded, eyes glistening. "I fell from a scaffolding while working on a high-rise. The company paid for surgery, but it wasn't enough. I lost my legs." He took a slow breath. "After that, no one wanted to hire me. I sold everything we had. My wife, Hannah, was 7 months pregnant when I became useless to the world." He paused, staring at the sleeping twins beside him. When it was time to give birth, she didn't make it. The words hit Elliot like a punch to the chest.
He couldn't speak.
The only sound in the room was the rain dripping down the window pane and the soft breathing of the children. Caleb looked down at his bandaged legs. "Sometimes I feel like I died with her. But he glanced at the twins, "they pull me back every time I want to give up." Elliot pulled out a chair and sat beside him. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I don't even know what to say." Caleb gave a faint smile, tired but gentle. "You don't have to say anything. Most people walk past me without even looking."
"You stopped."
"That's already more than I expected." Elliot lowered his eyes. "It wasn't kindness. It was something else. I saw you, and I saw myself." Caleb frowned. "Yourself?" Elliot nodded. "I built an empire and lost everyone I loved on the way. Maybe we both lost different things, but the pain feels the same." Caleb's eyes softened. "Maybe that's why God made it rain, so 2 broken men could find each other." They sat in silence for a long moment. The babies stirred, one of them reaching a tiny hand toward Elliot. He hesitated, then gently touched her palm. The warmth of that small hand lit something inside him he hadn't felt in years. "Do you have anywhere to go?" Elliot asked quietly. Caleb shook his head. "Nowhere left." Elliot stood, took a deep breath, and said the words that would change both their lives. "Then come with me." Caleb blinked, confused. "What?" "I have space," Elliot said softly. "And I think maybe I need company more than you need help." Caleb looked at him for a long moment, his eyes shining with tears he didn't want to shed. "Why would a man like you care about someone like me?" Elliot smiled sadly. "Because last night, you reminded me that money can build walls, but kindness builds bridges." Outside, the clouds began to break, and the first light of morning fell gently on the twins' faces. It was the first sunrise they had ever seen, and for both men, it felt like the first one in years. The next morning, the world outside looked calm again. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, reflecting the pale morning sun. Elliot's black Tesla waited outside the hospital. The babies were wrapped in soft new blankets, their tiny faces peaceful at last. Caleb sat in the wheelchair the nurses had given him, holding one of them gently. He looked nervous, like someone about to walk into a world he didn't belong in. Elliot walked beside him. "You ready?" Caleb gave a small nod, though his eyes said he wasn't. When they arrived at Elliot's mansion, Caleb's mouth fell open. The house was massive. Walls of glass, tall ceilings, clean white floors that seemed to shine like mirrors. Everything was perfect, too perfect. Inside, there was no sound, no laughter, no music, no smell of food. Just silence. Even the air felt cold. Elliot's housekeeper came running. "Sir, who are these people?" Elliot said quietly, "Friends." She looked from Caleb's wheelchair to the babies and frowned but said nothing. Elliot showed them to a guest room. The bed looked untouched, the curtains stiff like they had never been opened. He bent down and said, "You'll stay here for now. Anything you need, ask me directly." Caleb touched the soft sheets with shaky hands. "This is too much," he whispered. Elliot gave a small smile. "Trust me, this place could use a little life." That evening, as the babies slept, Caleb wheeled himself to the living room. Elliot sat on the couch with a cup of untouched coffee, staring at the flames in the fireplace. "You live here alone?" Caleb asked softly. Elliot nodded. "I had family once, but they all left when I became too busy for birthdays, dinners, or phone calls."
He paused.
"I built everything except a home." Caleb was silent for a while, then said, "You know, when you have nothing, you dream of a house like this. But now that I'm in it, I think quiet can be louder than noise." Elliot looked at him. "You're right. The quiet in this place doesn't rest. It screams." The babies started to cry, and Caleb tried to move quickly, but his wheelchair got stuck near the rug. Elliot rushed to help, lifting one of the babies into his arms. He rocked her gently, awkward at first, then with surprising tenderness. Caleb watched him, smiling faintly. "You're a natural." Elliot chuckled softly. "I'm not sure about that." "She stopped crying," Caleb said. "That's something." When the house grew quiet again, Caleb glanced at Elliot and said, "You didn't bring us here out of pity, did you?" Elliot shook his head.
No.
"I think I brought you here because, for the first time, someone needed me for something real." Caleb's eyes watered. "You've already done too much." Elliot looked down at the sleeping child in his arms. "Maybe. But sometimes doing too much is the only way to feel alive again." That night, as Elliot walked past the guest room, he saw Caleb asleep in the chair, one hand resting protectively on the twins. For a long time, Elliot stood at the door, watching quietly. The house that once echoed with emptiness now carried the soft sound of breathing. And for the first time in years, Elliot smiled. It was small and broken but real. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion slowly began to change. The silence that once ruled the house was now replaced by the soft laughter of babies, the rustle of blankets, and the quiet hum of Caleb's wheelchair moving across the floor. Elliot often watched from a distance, how gently Caleb held the twins, how patiently he fed them, how carefully he sang them to sleep. It amazed him how a man with so little strength could give so much love. One evening, Elliot came home from a late meeting. The house was dimly lit. The fireplace flickered softly. He found Caleb in the living room, the twins asleep in his lap, two tiny heads resting against his chest. "Long day?" Caleb asked with a tired smile. Elliot sighed and nodded. "The usual chaos. But this," he looked at the babies, "this feels like peace." Caleb chuckled softly. "It's funny. I used to think peace was when everything was perfect. Now I know peace is when the noise in your heart finally stops." Elliot sat down across from him. "You sound wiser than me." Caleb smiled faintly. Pain teaches fast. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rain starting again outside, the same kind of rain that brought them together. After a long silence, Caleb said quietly, "Do you ever wonder why things happen the way they do?" Elliot leaned back. "All the time." "I used to think my life ended the day of that accident," Caleb whispered. "But maybe it just changed direction. Maybe losing my legs was how I learned to stand in other ways." Elliot felt his chest tighten. "You talk like you've already made peace with everything." Caleb's eyes drifted to the sleeping babies. "Not everything. But I've learned that sometimes God doesn't give us answers. He gives us people." Elliot looked down, his voice soft. "And sometimes, we don't even realize we're those people until it's too late." Caleb tilted his head. "You sound like a man carrying something heavy." Elliot gave a faint smile. "Maybe I am. I've spent years building walls with money, pretending I'm fine. But the truth is I'm empty. You and these babies brought something I didn't know I was missing." Caleb studied him quietly. "Maybe we're both missing pieces of the same broken puzzle." That night, they talked for hours about loss, faith, and the strange way life weaves pain and hope together. Caleb told him how Hannah used to sit by the window during storms, saying rain was God's way of washing the world clean. Elliot listened, his heart heavy and warm all at once. Later, when the mansion finally grew quiet, Elliot stood by the doorway, watching Caleb adjust the twins' blankets before falling asleep in his chair. Lightning flashed softly outside. The rain fell in steady rhythm. For the first time, the mansion didn't feel cold. It felt alive, with love, with loss, with something real. But in the stillness of that night, a strange fear grew in Elliot's heart. He didn't know why, but something about Caleb's soft breathing and pale face made him uneasy. He whispered to himself, "Please don't let me lose another person I care about." Outside, thunder rolled gently in reply, like a warning the heavens could already hear. The morning came slowly. Gray clouds hung low in the sky, and the air smelled of another storm waiting to fall. Elliot walked through the mansion quietly, half expecting to hear Caleb's gentle voice or the baby's laughter. But the living room was still. Too still. He saw the empty wheelchair first, standing near the fireplace. Then he noticed Caleb lying on the couch, his face pale, his breathing weak and uneven. Fear shot through Elliot's chest. "Caleb!" he shouted, rushing to his side. Caleb's eyes opened slowly, heavy and unfocused. "Just a little tired," he whispered. But Elliot knew it was more than that. He called the ambulance with trembling hands, his voice shaking. "Please, hurry. He's not breathing right, please." The sirens came fast. Paramedics lifted Caleb gently, their voices calm but urgent. The babies cried from the bedroom, and Elliot's heart felt like it was tearing apart. At the hospital, machines beeped softly around Caleb's bed. Wires ran across his chest. His skin looked thin, his lips dry. The doctor pulled Elliot aside. "His lungs are badly damaged. It's from the old injury. He's been pushing himself too hard." Elliot's throat tightened. Will he make it? The doctor's eyes said everything. That night, Elliot sat beside him, refusing to leave. The twins slept in a small crib nearby. Caleb opened his eyes and gave a weak smile. "You stayed." Elliot nodded. "Where else would I go?" Caleb's voice came in broken whispers. "I dreamed of Hannah last night. She was holding the babies, she was smiling. Maybe she's waiting for me." Elliot shook his head, tears welling up. Don't talk like that. You're not leaving. You promised me peace, remember? Caleb smiled faintly. Peace doesn't always mean staying, Elliot. He reached for Elliot's hand, his grip weak but warm. Promise me something, he whispered. Elliot wiped his tears. Anything. Promise me you'll tell them, Leo and Lila, that their father tried his best. That even when life broke me, I still tried to love them with what was left. Elliot nodded, unable to speak. Tears ran freely down his face. Caleb's eyes softened. And promise me you'll keep smiling, even when it rains. The heart monitor beeped slower and slower. Elliot squeezed his hand tighter. Caleb, please stay. Please don't leave me now. But the sound faded. The rain began to fall outside, tapping softly against the window. And just like that, the man who taught Elliot what kindness looked like was gone. Elliot sat there for a long time, holding his friend's hand, the world outside drowning in the same storm that brought them together. Days later, he buried Caleb beneath a bridge overlooking the river, the very bridge where they first met. It was raining again that day. Elliot stood there with the twins in his arms, watching the water move slowly beneath him. He whispered, "You kept your promise, Caleb. You found peace. I just hope one day I do too." Years passed. The twins grew into bright, happy children who carried their father's smile. Every year, when the rain returned, Elliot took them to that same bridge. They would bring 2 small paper boats, one for their mother, one for their father, and let them drift into the water. One night, as the rain fell softly, little Lila looked up at him and asked, "Dad, do you think he can see us?" Elliot's voice shook as he smiled through his tears. "If he can't see us, he can feel us." Rain remembers where love began. The camera of life seemed to pull back slowly, Elliot standing on the bridge, holding both children, rain falling gently around them. No speeches, no riches, no noise, just a quiet promise kept by 2 men who once met in a storm. And somewhere in that rain, it almost felt like Caleb was smiling too. Years moved gently, like pages turning in a book no one wanted to end. Elliot grew older, softer, quieter. His hair turned gray, but his heart stayed young, kept alive by 2 smiling faces that once fit into his arms. Every time it rained, he felt it. The pull of memory, the echo of that night when a stranger crawling through the storm had changed his life forever. He never saw Caleb again, but he didn't have to. Caleb lived in Leo's courage, in Lila's kindness, and in the warmth that now filled every corner of the home that was once silent. On the anniversary of the night they met, Elliot returned to the bridge one last time. He placed 2 paper boats on the water, one for Caleb, one for Hannah, and whispered softly, "Thank you for teaching me how to be human again." The rain fell gently on his face, washing away the years of guilt, fear, and loneliness. He looked up, smiling. For the first time, it didn't feel like the sky was crying. It felt like it was blessing him. And as the paper boats drifted away into the mist, Elliot's voice broke softly through the rain. If love has a home, it's in the hearts of those we never forget. The camera fades on the bridge, the same place where pain met mercy and where 2 broken souls taught the world that even in the storm, love still remembers. Some storms break people. Others bring them together. That night, a billionaire found more than a man in the rain.
He found his humanity.
And even after the rain stopped, the love it brought never left. Sometimes the people we rescue end up rescuing us too. So the next time it rains, don't just run for shelter. Look around. Someone might be waiting for your umbrella or your heart. Thank you for watching this story, besties. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories that heal the soul. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and what part of the story made you cry the most. Because here on Folktale Princess channel, every story reminds us that love, kindness, and second chances still exist, even when it rains.